And good morning, Hoosier Nation, and welcome to another victorious edition of Hoosier Morning After. This is Hoosier Morning After Nebraska. Yesterday afternoon, your Indiana Hoosiers go on to win against Nebraska 68-55 in a very flat start of the game, but a game that they allowed Nebraska to get up by 10. Then, unlike the Syracuse game, the bench comes in, gives a much-needed spark to the team to take it to a 4-point lead into half. And then second half, great adjustments by the coaching squad, something that's been very good this year so far. Within the first 5 minutes of the second half, we brought the lead up to double digits. And despite Nebraska staying with it and continuing to fight, IU is able to just keep it out of their reach and keep the game to become a victorious game in the end. So it's a lot of things to learn from. And again, as the season has begun throughout this year, some ups and downs in each game and learning and teachable moments, which is kind of what you want early in the season. A team that is not cruising and facing no adversity. You don't learn anything as the year goes on, and you don't find a way once you face that adversity later on, you're going to struggle. But facing it early, I agree with on this team, and I think that's a great thing. You will notice we have a guest on today. Him and I have been in the ropes many times on Assembly Call. There was a stretch last year, I think, where we had a 3-game stretch with him and I in the post game that we're all losing games, and damn Jared for that, for keeping us, putting us in the weeds on those. But we have fun with them as best we can and analyze those what we could. He does a great job, obviously, of noting everything good and the bad that comes out through the games, and he's definitely going to note it.
I got it written down.
He's going to write it down. He's got it on paper and everything. Guys, welcome, Coach Tonsoni. Coach, what did you think about the game yesterday?
You know, Chad, it was an interesting game because of that start that you talked about, and a couple things that I know we'll discuss this morning. I thought the defense was outstanding. Nebraska runs an interesting style of offense, a lot of driving, a lot of kicking for three. Coach Hoiberg does a nice job of taking advantage of matchups, and I was worried about the dribble drive nature of that offense, and I thought, for the most part, it was suffocating defense, which is a winning formula. And then the bench play, which was not very good at Syracuse, really saved IU on this Saturday when the ball was just not finding the hoop early on, and Indiana got down 10. So, you know, after thinking about it, watching it, this is a lot different than the post game where it's immediate reaction and you're swimming for answers or searching for answers. Now you got time to sleep on it, wake up in the morning, get a cup of coffee. It's an interesting, different viewpoint. But those are the two things that really stood out. Besides just getting a first win in the Big Ten on your way to double-digit Big Ten wins is a nice way to get started.
Mm-hmm. And you spoke about the bench points, and specifically it was the actions of Anthony Leal that got out there. And I mean, I'll keep it 100. I mean, honestly, when he was out there, I saw number 3 jersey out there, and I had to think about it for a second. I was like, who in the heck is that? I didn't recognize him at first because we haven't seen him playing very much. But Coach Woody proving that he may be a bit of a psychic to a degree, even in the interview that he gave before this, was mentioning that Leal needs to get a little bit more of a go, that he's been doing really good, and he went with him, and his instincts and what he had been seeing in practice were correct, and he was that much needed spark. And when he came in, that was when Indiana got down by 10, and then a few possessions into him being in there, he makes a 3-pointer and kind of injects that energy on offense that the team kind of needed. I mean, a lot of the shots up until that were close. It was kind of one of those things. I think even Jen in Twitter commented on that the rim seemed extra stiff or something like that because they would just rattle in and out. But it was him in there, and that was the only shot he made in the let me see, 12 minutes that he played. 10 in the first half. I think he got just 2 in the second. So there wasn't a big offensive boost, but a good overall energy boost and intensity boost. Talk about Anthony and what you saw from him there, Coach?
Yeah, he is a great example of what athletes need to be, especially in the sport of basketball. You got to win your weight and be ready when your number's called. And obviously, every athlete wants to play. That's why you go to college and play college basketball. And he hadn't been getting much run in the first 7 games of the season. And he must have been really working well in practice, because Coach did say that look for Anthony Leal to get some time on the court, and boy, was Anthony ready. The things, obviously, the shooting is what we all recognize. It's just a smooth stroke, and when it just flops in without hitting any rim, it's just nice. But his passing is incredible, and I thought even last year he was one of the better post feed perimeters that we had last year, and I've thought the post feeding has been better for the most part this year by everyone. I think that's a fundamental that this staff has really worked on, and that's been good. But boy, he brought it to another notch yesterday. So I was really impressed. He had a nice feed to Tamar on a fast break. He had another one to Tamar that Tamar kind of fumbled. Anthony gets in for 12 minutes, has 2 assists to 1 turnover, and I can't remember what the turnover was, unless it was one of those kind of, was it the catch or was it the pass kind of a turnover? But he did a nice job passing. The other thing I think is that he cuts really well. And that's something in college basketball, Chad, that, it's not in the stats, but you got to cut hard to get open for your own shots and cut hard to get open to make the next play. I like that about Anthony Leal. He's always going to find some struggles on the defensive end because of just quickness and athleticism. But the young man was a Mr. Basketball in the state of Indiana for a reason. He understands the game. And at times, like yesterday, there's a need for those players who really understand where the ball needs to go, where people need to go. And boy, Anthony Leal is ready to play. And that's what's exciting as an Indiana fan and as a coach to see a young man do that.
Well, and I think it also speaks to, I was watching some highlights this morning that were put up, and one of Tamar's made 3-pointers. If you watch the play, it was a great play where Rob drived down, he kicked it out to Anthony, and then Anthony passed it over to Jordan, and then Jordan over to Tamar, and he hits the 3-pointer. And you watch, after it leaves Anthony's hand, he's immediately pointing over to Tamar and sees Tamar open. So just his general knowledge of the game is very high too. His basketball IQ and how he sees the court. And it's exciting to see him out there, and he's getting these minutes, and hopefully we get to see him some more. I think it's also due to Trey being out that he's getting this run as well. So hopefully when Trey's back, he doesn't get buried. But it speaks to kind of what the coach has been preaching, and also what the players have bought into and have been preaching as well, of this next man up situation. And this is what is going to be, I think, a very strong identity of this team, as we have seen in different games where the starters may struggle. So the bench picks it up, or the bench comes in and doesn't do so well, so the starters go. And even in the post game, Coach Woody was talking about that in practice, about the different units and everything. And he even said that the second unit pushes the first, that they push each other and that competition. And sometimes the second unit wins the score in practice, and sometimes the first unit wins. So it's a symbiotic relationship, and it's not a toxic relationship as it can be in a lot of teams. Speak to that kind of culture as a coach, having that as on your team. And how do you think that's going to benefit IU moving forward this year?
Well, if you can find the depth, and we just got to get it to be consistent, because it wasn't there very much in the Syracuse game, and then it shows up here in the Nebraska game. But if you can have somewhat consistent play out of your bench, it helps with inconsistency when your starters. Miller Kopp struggled yesterday mightily with some turnovers and missed shots, and then you have people come in like Bates and Leal, who picked up for that. That's the benefit when you're a coach, is that if one, if the bench struggles, then you had starters at Syracuse. So your goal is to get everyone playing at their optimal every game. That's something. But this team is a little bit of an immature basketball team, not mentally immature, but just understanding the game, understanding each other. Coach Woodson talks about it all the time, that they're learning how to play with each other. That is true. Anytime you have a new ball club, the offensive side is going to be the side uh, that struggles the most. And that's why I liked Woodson playing defense early, because defense will keep you in games. And that's just been our first 8 games, that when, the Syracuse first half wasn't good, and Marshall game was suspect. Some things hurt us, but the defense has been really, really solid, which keeps you in ball games. But yeah, you like to have multiple players at multiple spots that can come in, and you don't want the drop off to be so big. When you do bring a sub in, you don't want to be such a huge drop off that you're worried, because it's a long marathon season. You got to make sure everyone's as fresh as possible come late February, March, when you're making a push for the Big Ten and the NCAA tournament. You could play your studs 40 minutes a game, but at what point does that pay negative dividends somewhere? But you got to trust people. And it's earned in practice. Leo earned it in practice. You got to trust people when the lights come on. And it doesn't mean you don't like him as a coach, but if you can't trust him to do certain things, then you can't play as much. And so having depth means there's a lot of trust, and that you can go many, many ways. Style, who's hot, who's not. It gives Coach Woodson a lot of flexibility when guys can do those things.
Mm-hmm. So, and speaking of those struggles and ups and downs, someone that really struggled, had a great game against Syracuse, and then struggled just to get going. And I think it settled into his head, and you can get frustrated easily. And we even saw it visually, actually, was Miller Kopp. He went 0 for 5 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, and ended up having 4 turnovers. And even in one of those turnovers, when he threw it out of bounds, trying to get it to his guy, you visually saw that frustration out of him, banging the floor and everything, getting down on himself. And I wished after I saw that, it can cure all on the offensive side if you see a basket go in. But unfortunately, he just didn't see that. What do you think do you think happened with Miller Kopp? Was it just missing those shots that compounded? Just the game got away from him on this one. What did you see in his game?
No, I think Miller Kopp cares, and when he was playing bad, he just took it too far, and then one mistake became 2 mistakes, became 3 mistakes, and so that's a conversation I would have with, do what you do, Miller, and X play. And some kids have the negative ability of carrying a lot, and you got to overcome that ability sometimes, because it becomes pressure. You put pressure on yourself. Miller he was seeing things before they are actually open, and then he would jump in the air, and then all of a sudden it's not there. The one twisty kind of pass was that kind of thing. That was a lot of what happened in Syracuse. We knew by design plays were going to be there, but we didn't see the length, and the ball got tipped inside, especially with the post turnovers. I think the turnovers for Miller Kopp were just that. He was anticipating something and maybe didn't see it, or he went too early, and he just was trying to make something that was not there. Coaches talk all the time about make singles, not doubles, triples, or home runs. And sometimes I thought Miller Kopp was trying to make home run plays. And the shooting is shooting. Good shooters will have off nights. They have to have short memories. So hopefully missing shots is not something that's going to put Miller in a funk. I just thought the turnovers got to him because that's been such an emphasis in the program. It's been an emphasis with the media. It's the 25% turnover rate. Everyone's aware that Indiana has a turnover problem. And then you go out and make two turnovers or whatever, a bad play, and is a bad play, then that just sits on you. And it's just a fine line as a coach between aggressiveness. You want your guys to be aggressive, but yet you don't want them to turn over the ball. You want them free to shoot, but you don't want them to take bad shots. And I think Coach Woodson is erring on the side of, hey, go play and then teach. Go play and then teach. And sometimes in these early games, the ugliness of that freedom is going to pop up. But we also realize that Tamar coming in and being able to shoot and make some shots when he did, Anthony Leo coming in and not being afraid to make some of those pinpoint passes. I forget who it was. There was a late timeout, and we ran the pet play where we cut underneath and then cross screen, and the ball gets entered to the right, and it gets whipped right into the post, and it's worked forever. Boy, it was a real tight window, and someone felt comfortable.
It was Anthony that passed that I
Yeah,
remember
okay.
that. Yeah, it did not look like
It
that
just
ball
like,
should have gotten through.
whoa, yeah, what are you doing type of thing. But when you coach freedom, that allows for that. It's a fine line. When you stress turnovers, the danger is playing safe and missing opportunities. So that's an interesting watch because the turnovers are really hurting IU.
Mhm.
Um, really, really bad. And I think yesterday, it,
It was
uh,
11 turnovers in the first half, and then they had 4 in the second half. So the adjustments
yeah,
were there. The coach did a good job of turning it around on them.
yeah. The
Um,
shooting wasn't great yesterday, but 36% from 0.4% from three, 82% free throw shooting, 40% overall. We missed some shots that probably shouldn't. But the reason you're you know, in the 60s or whatever the final score was there, 68, and didn't have a whole lot of production was because we keep turning the ball over. So guys know that it's coached. Um, going back to your original question about Miller, I just think he knew he screwed up in some areas. He cares a lot, and then unfortunately he let that get to him. And you can't do that as a player. You got to have that next play mentality, and so Miller needs to learn from that because we can't have too many zeros offensively games from him in the Big Ten and manage to come out successful.
yeah, yeah. Well, next one that I want to shift to, and this was a question I kind of preempted you on. Xavier Johnson is obviously our starting point guard, and he's a much needed energy. He's a much needed guy that gets downhill for us on offense. And too many times when you see any of our other point guards in there, Rob, I should say explicitly, tends to kind of play more east-west. Well, X plays more downhill for us. And the big story with him, obviously, is the foul trouble. And Saint Tom Allen on Twitter pointed out something that was really good. And thanks if you're listening to this for posting this. He said against teams ranked over 100 in Ken Palm, X averages 1 foul every 9 minutes. But when he plays against Ken Palm top 100 teams, it's 1 foul every 5 minutes. Now that's 5 minutes of his gameplay, obviously. That's a tough thing. You want him on the court. You want him to be aggressive. But telling him not to foul could take off some of that aggression. Coach, how do you approach, as a coach, that type of situation in a player that's struggling with fouls like this that you need on the court?
Two things. Technically, you just keep showing him film and talk to him about good fouls and bad fouls. One of his fouls, he misses a layup. He makes a bad choice on offense to try to shoot a shot in transition layup when he had a kick out three. I think Leal or someone was on the corner. I think his better decision would have been to kick out three. He tries to make up with that with a sprint back against the ball handler who had been leveled off by his teammate and comes up from behind trying to steal and gets a foul. That would be a bad foul. That is playing too aggressive and being a bad foul. And so that's the technical piece, good fouls versus bad fouls. He takes a charge in the first minute, which really was nice because that was one of the best freshmen there. I think the McGowan kid gets a foul in the first 35 seconds, and that can help you down the road. But even that is a little risky in the first 30 seconds. If it goes as a block, now you got your point guard who you need out there with the foul. You just talk to him about, you want to save 2 points at the rim. Those are some good fouls. The bad fouls are extended fouls out on the floor or some of those fake hustle plays where, you made a mistake on one end, you're trying to make up with it on the other, and then you run into a foul. Those are things that, you don't need. That's the technical piece. And then you got to talk about the overall piece is here's the value. One, you are very valuable to our team when you're out on the court. The reason you can't have those fouls is because then you sit. I just think Xavier is a highly emotional player. We're talking about that, but Miller Kopp, we're talking about that Xavier Johnson. These kids have transferred in from situations that maybe they weren't as pleased with. They know Indiana basketball needs to be turned around. They know it's big, and then they just play so fired up that they lose that technical aspect of the basketball game. And boy, I've said all along, Chad, to some people at our level, if you want to go be a head coach, get a major in psychology. because I think that's a major piece. Yes, we can teach stance and move your feet and guard your yard and all the technical things to prevent fouling and being able to stop drives and do all that stuff. But a lot of it is being able to communicate with the young man, uh, the thinking part of the game. But we are better with Xavier Johnson on the floor for that downhill. But he had no assist yesterday. One of the things it's not your question, but even on offense, sometimes, at Pitt, I think he had to be the guy. He could really help IU without being the guy to score. I thought there were some shots he took, again, within that freedom, that one more passing. You talked about Leal throwing the ball and then pointing to get it out to the next. Indiana can be really good with the one more passing thing. So the next level of offense for Coach Woodson, in my opinion, is, guys are free to shoot, but we do a lot of first pass shooting. And they're open, and you need to shoot it. I don't have a problem with that. But, boy, you miss early, that looks really bad when you do the first pass or second pass shooting instead of making that extra pass. That's an area I would talk to Xavier Johnson about as well. That's Xavier Johnson. That's part of the reason that they had a mutual parting of the ways at Pittsburgh. Was that the coaching staff had a hard time for him to get that mental approach. At Pittsburgh, it was a lot of chirping at opponents and officials and getting some technicals, and he didn't do what the coaches want as far as that, and that's part of the way he mutually left. And then the hope is that he had a great relationship with Kenya Hunter. He signed with Nebraska when Hunter was there, and then when that staff was let go, he went to Pittsburgh. That maybe Kenya Hunter can come in and help him that way. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think he has for the most part, because what I heard at Pittsburgh, I've seen bits and pieces of it, and mostly it's in the fouls and then sitting out, and it's really, I think he's buying in. I think he understands that, but sometimes it's hard to get away from who you are. I mean, and make the changes from your own personal DNA. I think he's making strides. He still needs to continue in that mental side on defense of not fouling, on offense of making sure you're moving the basketball and being an assist guy and not the go-to scorer guy mentality. But, boy, it takes a hard time when you played basketball for 3 years at the college level to try to change that. But I think he's trying. So, watch for that improvement down the road. But I would handle it with some technical stuff and drills and that, and teaching him that, good fouls versus bad fouls. And then I always have conversations with people like that on the mental approach of, play within the system, do what you can do, but don't overdo things on both the offense and defensive end.
Yep. That's great point. Yeah. We don't want to lose that edge. We don't want this team to lose that edge. And it was one of my favorite kind of quotes from the Syracuse post game or I don't know if it was that one or not, but what Coach Woody has said, that when asked about how this team is a little more chirpy and everything, Coach even says, they talk a lot more, and he's like, they even talk to me, even so much that they talk back to me. So that edge is a fine line to have to deal with as a coach. I understand it. I don't want to lose it because I don't want to go back to what we had before, where we had no edge. So you don't want to correct too much. Someone, though, good transition here, speaking of correcting, someone that struggled in the Syracuse game was kind of Batman's Two-Face, if I could say, with his crazy turnovers, but had a good game last night. Race Thompson had a double-double, had 0 turnovers. So obviously, within himself and within the coaching staff talking to him, made it a point to keep better control of the ball and not turn it over like he did before. But what was very interesting to see was Woody sticking with him in the lineup when Nebraska tried to go small on us and force some mismatches and Race having to go against a smaller, faster guy. But I felt like Race really handled that adjustment well, and it was great to see Woody stick with that. Now, he did go to a smaller lineup here and there with putting Miller Kopp there and at the 4. But speak to Race and his game and the advantage of being able to keep him in and not playing against the other team.
Well, Race is just fun to watch. The game, he had a lot of turnovers. He almost had a triple-double, I believe, in the Syracuse game. Just a maximum effort guy. His quickness off the ground for block shots and rebounds is again, another non-stat thing that I just really, really enjoy to watching. Obviously TJD is the best player, most valuable player all the time, but this team doesn't go without Race Thompson. And his ability to guard a speedy guy allows some mismatches for us on offense, because what happened was when Wisconsin, I think the McGowan kid, the freshman, was stuck on Race a couple times, and Coach Adranya in our IU film room in the assembly call community does a really good job of showing that little rub action where Indiana just rubs off the low post and brings the ball to the side. Well, they put Race down there. So the advantage on our side of him being able to guard and not have to match up on the defensive end is now we can take advantage, Indiana can take advantage of offensive advantage there when they have guard small. And Race's post-up game's been really nice. He's got a little hook shot that's been nice. He's got a little spin, fake one side comeback baseline move, and he's really able to take some smaller people and even some people his size to the rim from the low post. So that's what I saw in that Nebraska game. But there was again, I go back to defense was solid. I was so worried about the drive and kick threes, and luckily Nebraska only came in the game shooting 28% three. But you never know. A guy gets on a heater. We've seen it. Guys banking in threes in Assembly Hall and all that. But part of that was, can you guard at the four? I thought Parker Stewart played hard defensively too. So there's many guys out there that the bounce scares me. Going forward, it still scares me because I think our lateral quickness defensively is not there. And we don't have a defensive stopper. Our defensive stopper comes off the bench in Rob Finney. And so Race was able to do that and then take advantage. And his tip dunk, man, oh my goodness, send it in. For those of you who are old enough to remember, send it in, Jerome, where the backboard broke. Wow, that's that explosiveness, quick off, and not to foul too, because he just went up and he didn't go over, and was still able to throw that down. Boy, just the MVP stuff, most valuable stuff, gets thrown around too much, Chad. But we'd be good if Race wasn't able to play, but he is so valuable in many ways. Rebounding, defensive presence around the rim, being able to guard a quicker player than on the offense. If he starts knocking down some threes in that pick and pop action, then man, he's just, we're going to be really, really good.
It's definitely, you feel like this is an Indiana squad that is very much akin to, as you would say, an analogy of a car engine. Many different pieces that make the engine run. There's obviously the very important pieces that you can see that make your car go, but there's those other pieces that you may take for granted until they break down, and then the car's not moving, the car's not going. And then you have other ones like Anthony Leal was. He was the spark plug, getting the engine going and everything. When we couldn't get the engine started and the car moving, he was that new spark plug that maybe car mechanic Woody put into the game, into the engine, and got us going. So it's definitely a pieces team. And while we do have the stars, and we do have other pieces that can make the car go. So that's exciting to see in this team. Now, another thing that was very interesting stat-wise, moving into stats, we shot no free throws in the first half. All of our free throws were shot in the second half, and I think that speaks to the lack of aggression and aggressiveness that we had on offense to start. But believe it or not, up until I think about the 2-minute mark or so, we were 100% on free throws. It was a missed free throw by Race. And then one that I think Trace missed one, and then Jordan Geronimo missed one, which made us missing three free throws. But I was getting on edge every time we were going to the line, excited to see that we may go 100% on free throws for a game, despite obviously it being a small sample size. Coach, let me kick it to you. Any stats to talk about for you that you want to highlight that maybe we just brushed on a little bit in this game?
Yeah, and I think you have a win, and there's some you want to be positive. but only 10 assists. If you want to go to something that's a concern, and I don't want to call negative, but a concern is we're coming off a game, obviously 100 and some points in double overtime with the extra time, but had 26 assists, I think, in Syracuse,
Mm-hmm.
down to 10, and 15 turnovers. As a team, you want that at least 1-to-1. And I think that speaks to what you said there, that the Indiana offense was not very good. Whether that was by design, meaning what we called, or it was just what we called, but the execution or the shot selection early. I think we were really quick in shooting. And again, that's that fine line between, I think TJD tweeted out later in the day to Devontae, you would have loved playing for him because he yells at us for not shooting.
Mm-hmm.
There's that fine line, though, between, um, you know, taking those quick shots that are there, but there might be something better in the next 5 to 10 seconds. When the passing became better, the Indiana offense took off. I just think that is, if you honestly evaluate this tape, when we were shooting early and taking shots that I guess in my opinion were quick shots, maybe not bad shots, Indiana got off to a tough start. And I think that shows when you only have 10 assists that there's a lot of people trying to do things themselves, instead of that, what I call one more passing or working to find maybe a little bit better shot. And I don't have the answers for you, Chad, on what that fine line. You got fine line on fouling, you got fine line on turnovers, you got fine line on shooting. That's the art of coaching right there, is you've got to find that right balance in order to keep your confidence and your aggressiveness and yet playing smart basketball. And Indiana is an immature basketball team. They're trying to figure that out. And please understand, when I say immaturity, I'm not talking about a mentally the way they talk or doing things. It's just about immature as far as basketball knowledge and basketball understanding. They're trying to figure it out. And I think the right way of doing it is what Coach Woodson's doing, is give them that freedom early and then keep teaching and hopefully that shot selection, that passing, that turnover, the fouling gets better as you go. It's easy to back people into the right way. It is then to be so safe and then turn people loose. I think this is headed the right way. But the 10 assists to 15 turnovers was a stat that stood out to me.
Yeah, and I think you nail something there with the coaching, is that I feel confident this year, and I feel confident with the coaching staff. The right adjustments have happened, especially going into half. How many times have we in the past go into halftime and we're like, uh-oh, who's going to come out and how are they going to come out? And they just haven't come out right. They've been down on themselves and the adjustments weren't correct or whatever. But now in the adversity we've seen this year so far going into halftime, I feel confident enough and am relaxed enough to at least tip the scale in the positive side that we're going to come out well in halftime.
One of the things that I saw in Coach Woodson's post game, which was really interesting to me as a coach, was he said, we got off, I'm paraphrasing here, but we got off to a slow start, but I wanted them to play through that.
Yes.
I think that's excellent coaching, because sometimes we as coaches put our thumb on things too much. And I think that was evident in the last regime, a very good coach who tried to control everything and put people, maybe, not maybe, but I think as a general consensus, just overcoached. And sometimes you let people play and you get down 10 and then you got to make an adjustment at timeout. I thought he was a little late for the first timeout. I would have called a timeout a little bit earlier. But there was another timeout later when Indiana had the lead and things were getting a little helter-skelter, where Indiana just suffocated them defensively and was getting out on a break, and the pace got so fast. And I think it was at the 8-9 minute mark of the second half. You're up 12. He made a really good timeout there to talk about strategy and okay, yeah, the pace helped us balloon this lead up, but we want to make sure we're doing things appropriately. I just think he's gained a lot by letting kids play, but that doesn't mean that that's always going to be good basketball. Again, turnovers, bad shots, fouling. But I do think that, again, he's just get that freedom out there and then teach and film and bring people back down to the right level is an interesting approach, instead of so much nervousness to do things right and then trying to get them up to the right level. But it could cost us some games at some point. And again, you want to be playing better in late February, early March, and we'll have a better handle on all that if we ever have any handle as fans. Um, on the overall growth within the season, right? We get so wrapped up in every game, every possession. I'm sure if you check Twitter after the first 10 minutes, the honeymoon's over, Woodson can't coach offense and all that. In this day of immediate reaction and shouting out our basement thoughts now on in public, um, every game's the national championship and evaluated that way. There is growth within the season, and 8 games is not really enough to see what this coaching staff and what this team can do. But that's I do think I'm gaining as a fan just a boatload of confidence in adjustments that are being made and the way they're doing things. And obviously, all of us will have some thoughts on should have done this, should have done that. But the overall, when you sit back on the Hoosier morning after and get some separation from those game emotions, yeah, I think you would be wrong if you thought anything other than this staff is doing a good job with what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's that. Thank you for pointing that out. Cause yeah, that was obviously the goal of the show. And the Syracuse game, if you go back and watch that one, I did that Hoosier morning after myself. That was the one that tested, because occasionally it takes a little more than a night to settle those emotions and come to completion. But again, looking back at a Syracuse type of game, you see all the positives and all the great film and all the great lessons that came from that and all the fight that came out of that. And I think that is going to be a common thing with this team. Whether they're playing good, whether they're playing bad, you're going to see fight. Yeah. I don't think you will ever see this team give up on themselves or the game itself.
Yeah, and we had a little bit of that last 3 or 4 years when things get away at the 10-minute mark of the second half and you get down 8. That game was pretty, pretty much over. There are some concerns. It's not all crimson colored glasses here. The bad starts have to be addressed. What needs to be done? Is it pregame? Is it whatever? We have too many guys that have up really great games and then down games. I thought TJD's juice was missing, almost to the point where I asked someone in our text message group what he looked like he was under the weather. He's trying to play hard, but it just wasn't the same. So that's got to be managed, because you get down 10 to most teams in the Big Ten, and you might not be able to come back. So whether you have fight or not, the consistently slow starts in the last 2 or 3 games, that concerns. I still have major concerns about guarding the bounce, although last night I thought that was fantastic, the way they dealt with Verge and some of those guys that are really, really quick. And then on the offense, they really took away TJD early, and Indiana only scored 9-10 points in 10, 11 minutes. And the offense just wasn't popping. And I know Coach Woodson said the defense has been ahead of the offense. Well, the offense needs to start catching up, because it's going to, when the calendar turns, it's going to be all tough games, and Northwestern's going to be tough. Penn State's going to be tough. Even the teams that, we were favored by 11.5 and won by 13. So we did what we needed to do against Nebraska. But all of these games are going to be grinds, because there's great coaches in the Big Ten, great athletes in the Big Ten. So there are still some concerns, but there are concerns in every program. If we were doing a Michigan post-game show, there's a lot of concerns, even though they won last night against San Diego State. So Gonzaga has some concerns. They got beat by Alabama. But you want to make sure that, I always encourage fans and people to address the concerns. As we want these guys to get them fixed, because we're rooting for these guys, and not go out and tweet people and get all angry and everything. We're all too angry in this society now anyway. Take some joy in what you're seeing, and when there's a setback, go sit under the Christmas tree or find some mistletoe with your sweetie, and everything will be okay, and then there'll be another game.
Well, and I think that's you're talking about all these woes that we have, and as you start to kind of list them, and you were talking about them there, I found solace in the fact that I feel like all those are correctable. there are things that we can correct on this team, and these players can learn from, and we can find better starts. We can learn to take care of the ball better, that kind of thing. Whereas in the past, it's been shooting, or it's been we just don't have a point guard that's ready to run the game. It's been negatives or issues that are tougher to overcome. Now this team has, like you said, negatives, but they're overcomable, and
Yeah,
they're yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. The only one for me is that garden to bounce, because some
Yeah.
of that's athleticism. You can teach technique, you can teach toughness, but if that guy's quicker, like I can't guard people anymore on the bounce. You can coach me all you want, Chad, but I'm just not. You got to put me on the slowest guy. If we have an assembly call, game against some other teams, podcast community, that's the only concern that I think is somewhat something we're just going to have to deal with most of the year, because you want Parker Stewart out there, you want Millsap out there for the offensive stuff. What are you going to do? But you're absolutely right. The shot selection, the turnovers, the fouling, all of that stuff's correctable with film study and practice.
And I think with that guarding on the bounce, I see them trying to adjust to that with guys coming over and trying to help off their man. But where I think that's opening up a bad situation is we've seen a lot of times where guys aren't recovering then properly back to their man. So they're obviously trying to adjust that to a degree, but hopefully that doesn't bite us in the rear and other places. So yeah, I think we've kind of killed this one. Give me your final thoughts then, Coach, on this game.
Well, I think it's been a great start. You wish you could have maybe a player or two over in that overtime loss to Syracuse and be undefeated, but you're going to lose basketball games. Indiana's going to lose some more games. This team is playing in a style, Chad, that is enjoyable, even in the struggle. And for me, it brings me back, and I want to be careful because we're not back. I don't want to put it on a T-shirt or anything like that. But I do have confidence in Coach Woodson and the staff. I do have confidence in the kids. The attitudes are better. The confidence is better. It brings me back a little bit to when I first started following, was in college. It was like IU's going to win every game. And if they're down 10, okay, guys, what are you going to do to kick it in, and when you're going to kick it in, but we're going to be okay. That is Indiana basketball to this old man, is that extreme confidence that I think we're going to beat Wisconsin on Wednesday. And if we're down 6 with 3 minutes to go, I think we're going to find a way. The Syracuse game, if it taught me anything, is to still believe in this team, even though when you're frustrated and you're down and you're nervous and you don't want the loss. And when Indiana used to lose in the 80s, it was, man, that's shocking. They're supposed to win every game, and I thought they were going to come back. Okay, they lost. Well, we got another game in 2 days, and we're going to kick some real, rear end in that game. It is starting to get back to me to that. Long season that could change, I guess, but I feel more comfortable watching Indiana basketball this season than at any time in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, even in the Crean era, because I think this is Indiana basketball. Defense, good offense, some shooting. Shooting has been really good. I just feel a little more comfortable with Coach Woodson at the helm, and watching Indiana games are more enjoyable for me. So that's my final thought on this Hoosier morning after. I appreciate being on here, and it's fun to talk. And it's really, I'm never going to give up those post game shows on the assembly call, but it's really nice, sitting back thinking about it. You asked me last night, and when I said yes, I started thinking about what I want to talk about, and could really, I maybe sound halfway intelligent now instead of emotional. So thank you for having me on.
Well, thanks for being on. And that's always been the goal. Just a great conversation, sit back and enjoy. We don't think that we're experts. We don't pretend to be experts. We're IU fans. We're a little bit more knowledgeable. We know the game. We know it a little bit more. And it's fun to talk about it. Any chance to be able to talk about it more. One final chance I'm going to get you to talk, because that's something that I like to do on this show as I've been bringing people on. Now, puff up that ego. I know, pop your collar, Coach. I know you don't like to do that and everything, but I like to give people an outlet to promote what you're doing. Promote, especially for you, promote Delphi bracketology. Talk to people listening about what that is, where they can find it, give the quick kind of explanation of what it is, and just how it's been going and what you're doing with that.
We are a high school bracketology club, which means we are the Joe Lunardi. We're a bracket. We do what Joe Lunardi does on ESPN. When you're watching ESPN, he tells you what team's a 1 seed and all that. Our work, we have 13 students and 3 faculty members. We have some media credentials all over the state that we can go and cover games. We do put out listicle articles. We're not ESPN where we have long articles, but we'll put out lists of conference reports and teams of the week and things like that. So, if you want to know where Indiana is bracket wise, we put out a bracket every Friday. We do a podcast every Thursday night, but that can be found at DelphiBracketology.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Delphi Brackets, where we interact. We got a question last night at 11 o'clock about Alabama, what the win over Gonzaga does, and we try to answer it. Maybe give us 30 minutes to an hour, or maybe a day, but we'll try to get back and answer any of your bracket type of questions. We really become relevant, Chad, in January and February when there's a lot more information and we can really do a lot of better job of predicting. But we're here for all you basketball junkies who want some quick hits on your phone, a quick read on your phone. Again, we're not ESPN, CBS Sports, but we are trying to put out good stuff. So check out our webpage, DelphiBracketology.com. Every Thursday night before assembly call at 7:30, you can come in and get some bracket fix where myself and a couple young high school bracketeers, we talk brackets, and then follow on Twitter. We have an Instagram account that we're starting at Delphi Bracketology on Instagram. This thing's starting to explode a little bit. We'll have a TV show on a internet network here in January. So really proud of our work from our faculty members and our students at Delphi Bracketology. And then obviously the stuff we do with the assembly call. I can be followed at Sony42 on Twitter. And I appreciate the chance to promote what we do.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach. So that will do it for this edition of Hoosier Morning After. Check us out this week. On Thursday will be the next game after IU plays Wisconsin on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. at the dreaded Kohl's Center. Hopefully we can come out with a little bit more energy in this game. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter at General Chadwick. There you can find out information about the show, when I'm going to go live, and who I might have as my guest. Special thanks, as always, to Bob Thompson for producing the music you hear on the show. Again, we'll be back again the morning after the next game. Until then, go out there, have a wonderful day, and as always, go Hoosiers.